Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Okay. My name is Andrea, and I use she, her pronouns. I serve as one of your Board of Trustee members, and I'm happy to welcome you to Tahoma Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Longtime members and new visitors alike, you are welcome here. Whether you are joining us here on site in the sanctuary or online from another location, we're glad you're here. I actually hear myself over there. There's like a mini me over there somewhere. Is that? Oh, okay. That's all right. It's always strange when you hear your own voice, right? I was like, whoa, what is that? Oh, that's me. Okay. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. And love is the power that holds us together. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. You are welcome just as you are. If this is your first time with us, I bid you a special welcome. I'm so glad you found your way to our community. After the service, I will be in the back of the sanctuary. I might be in the back of the sanctuary. I am going to be downstairs with the kids today, but I'll come up and I'll be somewhere, probably eating snacks, but I'll be here to answer any questions you may have about Unitarian Universalism, about our congregation, or if you want to talk about how to get involved in our community. Please feel free to join me. For those of you here in the sanctuary, we have hearing assistance devices and large print hymnals available in the back of the sanctuary. Our ushers would be happy to help you with these. For our service this morning, our online chat chaplain will help guide our online folks. And for those of us on site, we will be utilizing the screen behind me to project the words for our unison readings and lyrics for our hymns. You can also follow along with the printed order of service. You can find information on our website, tahomauu.com. Please be sure to read the weekly e-news. There's lots of information in the weekly e-news. And that has important information about our congregation, upcoming events, and volunteer opportunities. There are lots of volunteer opportunities if anybody's in the mood. If you aren't yet signed up for e-news, you can do that today on our website so you don't miss a thing. There's so much happening here at Tahoma UU. I want to highlight just a few exciting announcements. So I'm just going to do a couple here. One is on March 22nd is the TUUC auction. So save the date for that. That should be a fun night. Also, next Saturday afternoon, if anybody is available to help move some chairs and clean out the DRE office, please get a hold of Reverend Margo here. So that would be next Saturday afternoon, depending on how many people, 1 to 3 or 1 to 2. And then finally, if anybody, some of our older members that were here, we moved over to a new system called Aplos last year, and not everyone's automatic pledges are actually working in the new system. So if you would pretty please check that. I'm one of those people. So I'm fixing it. But yeah, so just take a peek at your Aplos account, make sure like it's set up correctly. Oh, Sean is here, our admin. If you have any troubles, I can help you find Sean too. He had to walk me through it. Okay. I was very confused. So once again, if you want more news, you can check out the e-news for more information about these and many ways to become more involved and deeply connected with our spiritual community. You're also invited to join us for social hour immediately following the service right here in the sanctuary. There will be coffee and refreshments right over here. And it's a great time to catch up or get to know someone new. For those of you who are visiting or who are new to our community, we have red coffee mugs for you to use if you would like to identify yourself and chat. So again, if you have the red coffee mug, that means you're saying, hey, come say hi. As we begin our service, I respectfully acknowledge that I speak to you today from the land of the Coast Salish people, including the Puyallup tribal nation, land from which they were forcibly displaced. I affirm the continued sovereignty of the 574 federally recognized tribes, including the 29 here in Washington, and support those still fighting for federal recognition. I acknowledge the theft, violence, trauma, and racism that Indigenous people have experienced at the hands of colonizers from 1492 through the present day. I honor the resiliency of the Indigenous people and stand with them as they continue to fight for land, water, visibility, sovereignty, and their very existence. Lastly, friends, I invite you to set your electronic devices to worship mode. We are gathered here, one community together. Let us settle ourselves into this holy moment and open our hearts to learn and unlearn, to share and to receive. Now let us join together in worship.
Our opening words this morning are from Unitarian Universalist minister Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each of us to one another. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength is too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed.
Our chalice later this morning is Thomas Oliver. Last week, I could not remember both names. This week, I nailed it. And please join me in the words on the screen. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come. Our opening hymn is number 407 in the gray hymnal. We're going to sit at the welcome table. The words will be on the screen. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. We're gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. All kinds of people around that table. All kinds of people around that table one of these days, hallelujah. All kinds of people around that table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. No fancy style at the welcome table. No fancy style at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. No fancy style at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days.
My favorite part of that is no fancy style at the welcome table. Come as you are. All right. Kids, come forward because I'm going to see if you can tell me what day it is tomorrow. Besides no school day. I can always check my skill with turning on the microphone. You can tell me if the little green light is on. There we go. A little green light. Can anybody tell me what day it is tomorrow? Why there's no school? You had your hand up first. That's right. That's right. And some people already know a fair amount about Martin Luther King Jr., but some people don't. We kind of add what we know and what the words he said. And you're going to think this is a weird, parts of this story are really weird and icky. But it ends better than the middle. It starts okay, gets weird in the middle, and then it ends up better. So hard for freedom and helps so many people. We honor him every year on his special day, and we call it Martin Luther King Day. And we say to him, Happy birthday, Martin Luther King. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Where did you learn all these things about a play in the classroom? Yeah. From parents? Have you learned anything from your? Okay. Well, I'm going to talk to the parents about that today. So maybe we will all learn something. Yeah, things are falling in an interesting way this year on the calendar. All right, it is time to go off to class. We will make our arch and sing our kids out. Thanks for participating and educating us.
We hold you as you go.
This is a time for us to reach into ourselves and make an offering. I'd like to share with you this reading by Paul Dalzell. The offering we make each Sunday is an opportunity to recommit to this place and to these people. It is as much a ritual as singing together, lighting our chalice, or reciting our unison affirmations. If you are in the sanctuary, there will be baskets being passed around, or you can click on the Give button, which is shown on the screen in the Zoom. Please stretch a little, give a little more.
Please join me in the words of our dedication. We dedicate ourselves and our offerings to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of love we call community, both within and beyond these walls. Our meditation hymn is number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing, Stand in Body or Spirit. The words will be on the screen or in the gray hymnal.
I know that is a really tricky song musically. And I also know for those of us who are not Christians, we can struggle with a few of those words. However, this was a very important song in the civil rights movement. And I think it's important that we appreciate it in that way and get to know it a little bit, even though it can be tough for a variety of reasons. I have two readings. One is from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the other one is about putting his work into action. So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says, "Our ultimate end must be reconciliation. The end must be redemption. The end must be creation of beloved community. We have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of civilization. The type of love that I stress here is agape, which is understanding goodwill for all people. It is an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. It does not begin by discriminating between worthy and unworthy people. It does not begin. It begins by loving others for their sakes and makes no distinction between friend and enemy. It is directed toward both. It is the type of spirit, this type of love that can transform opposers into friends. It is love seeking to preserve and create community. It is the love of God working in the lives of men. This is the love that may well be the salvation of civilization. The second one is from Ruby Sales, who should not be confused with Ruby Bridges. Ruby Bridges being one of the first children to be integrated into schools. Ruby Sales was just a person. While studying at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, Ruby Sales became involved with the state's Freedom Summer voter registration drive. And one afternoon, she and Jonathan Daniels was a white seminarian. Ruby is Black. They were standing in line at the corner store when a man shot and killed Daniels for standing behind Ruby Sales in line. Unnerved and unable to speak significantly about this event for 7 months, she was spending her time gathering herself to testify at the trial of Daniels' murder. She testified on behalf of her slain colleague and friend. Her perseverance later moved her to a lifetime of social activism. And this is what she said at the time of the trial. I became involved in the Southern Freedom Movement, not merely because I was angry about injustice, but because I loved the idea of justice. So it's where you begin your conversation. Most people begin their conversation with, I hate this, but they never talk about what they love. And so I think we have to begin that conversation that incorporates a vision of love with a vision of outrage. I don't see those things being over or against each other. I grew up in a folk tradition that positioned us to stand against the wind, against the winds of Southern apartheid. Our parents were spiritual geniuses who created a world and language where the notion that I was inadequate or inferior or less than never touched my consciousness. I grew up believing that I was a first-class human being, a first-class person. Our parents were spiritual geniuses who taught us something serene about love. The old song goes, I love everybody. I love everybody in my heart. And so hate was not a thing in my vocabulary. I knew and I know that I cannot control the world, but I can control myself, my internal life, and you will not coerce me into hating. Around the Martin Luther King holiday, we often hear the words beloved community. And in Unitarian Universalism specifically, we hear the use of beloved community throughout the years. It always sounds hopeful and hopefully inclusive. But what does it really mean? And where is our part in creating it? Are we all really, truly welcome? And is this idea so broken that we can't even move it forward? This morning, in honor of the work of Martin Luther King Jr., we're going to spend a little time on those questions. We're going to look at the idea historically and from a few different perspectives. And then I'm going to ask us what it means here. And you will notice I have brought back the sticky notes. You got two this time. One is for right here at Tahoma UU, and the other one is for our greater world. Although the idea behind beloved community is used in other cultures and really it's timeless, the phrase in this country was first popularized and used by philosopher and theologian Josiah Royce, 1855 to 1916. It wasn't later till it was popularized by Martin Luther King Jr. So Royce was the founder of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a member. In 1913, Royce wrote, "My life means nothing, either theoretically or practically, unless I am a member of a community." Unquote. He observed that besides the actual communities we experience in our daily lives, there was also this ideal of beloved community. And it's made up of those who have pledged to a cause of loyalty and truth. And for Royce, community wasn't something established and then left alone. It was all embracing, it was radical, and it required constant tending. Dr. King and Josiah Royce were both Christians. So the beloved community for them was not this utopian goal to be confused with a heavenly image of a peaceable kingdom. It was about the kingdom right here on earth right now. That's also our universalist history. Universalists said for centuries of old, don't be concerned about what's going on in your afterlife. You need to be thinking about what you're doing right here because it matters more. They believed it was achievable, and they believed it had to use methods of nonviolence. Dr. King's philosophy of beloved community centered on a global vision that we could all share wealth and resources. A place, and I quote, poverty, hunger, and homelessness would not be tolerated because international standards of human decency would not allow it. Racism in all of its forms of discrimination, bigotry, prejudice would be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. So again, they're talking about poverty, hunger, homelessness. They're talking about disenfranchisement going away. King went on to say, it would be the vision that international disputes could be solved in this way, through reconciliation instead of military power, and that love and trust would be at the center. Our Unitarian Universalist Association for the past, I would say, 6 years has been working on this as we're not getting rid of our principles, but we're shifting and we're moving to love at the center. And that is the new logo, which I'm going to talk about sometime in February. There's a person named Freeman Wickland who's kind of trying to move this beloved community idea forward in current time. And Wickland says there are some components. He believes that all deep in our heart, we have a desire to be peaceful, to be happy, and to be safe. And so beloved community has to embody that as a basic fundamental human right. Peace, the ability to be happy, the ability to be safe. In beloved community, conflict still exists, but it's resolved peacefully, non-violently, without holding on to ill will and resentment. In beloved community, we recognize the interdependent nature of all life. So we appreciate, recognize, and value the inherent worth of all people, and he adds animals and ecosystems. Wickland is not a Unitarian Universalist, and yet inherent worth shows up and interdependentness. And in the beloved community, kindness, compassion, and love for all life should motivate all our actions. To work cooperatively, peacefully, and that it is about ending hunger and prejudice and poverty and homelessness. It's about addressing climate change and environmental destruction, because it's all connected. It also means people with power using their power to lift up the voices that are often less heard. So we don't speak for them. We figure out ways to lift them up so they can be heard. And that beloved community means we use to create change so that everything can embody that compassion that we seek. Our overall commitment must be unconditional to all inclusive kindness and goodwill, and what Dr. King called the engine of reconciliation. As I mentioned before, Martin Luther King went to study with Gandhi in India. And then he also, when Thich Nhat Hanh, who was the Vietnamese Buddhist monk who was exiled from Vietnam because he had too much influence there and was in asylum in Europe, King met with him as well. And this is when Dr. Martin Luther King started to talk about ending the Vietnam War, because Thich Nhat Hanh talked to him about, this is what the suffering on the ground in the villages looks like. And this is what the suffering of people who fight these wars look like. And so then King took up that cause as well. So King honors his work with Gandhi. It's called A Sermon on Gandhi. And he explains these ethical reasons of what must be at the bedrock. He said the aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of beloved community. So when the battle is over, the new relationship comes between the oppressed and the oppressor. Not a way of acquiescence that leads to moral or spiritual suicide. And remember, Martin Luther King is the oppressed, but he's saying, I want that relationship with the oppressors. He does not want bitterness in the survivors or brutality in the oppressors, but rather he wants redemption. And I think also as a Christian, he knew in his heart and his soul that redemption is always possible. So what actions do we need to take, like right here, right now, this coming year? In the analysis of King's work, Ruby Sales, and Wickland, when we understand that beloved community is the end goal of everything we do, all of our efforts at peace and justice, we can better plan and we can better implement campaigns, actions, legislation, curriculum, and live in ways that move us toward creation of this beloved community, love at the center. So what that means is we have to continue to get better at courtesy, compassion, kindness. Don't get seduced into the pettiness or the keeping score or holding on to ill will. I'll bet we all got tested on that during the holidays as we came into contact with people who may have been difficult in our lives, all our lives. But can we approach that a little differently? We are mere moments from installing a new president. So we have been preparing ourselves, but I also think a lot of us kind of took a vacation from it for a few weeks, which we needed to do between the election and the inauguration. We needed to just pull back, kind of re-nurture ourselves. Because there will be anger, bitterness, hate, blame, vitriol, insert other words here that are coming. It's here all the time. But we are going to have someone in office who is fairly free with those kinds of words, talking about immigrants and refugees and many other groups. So we're going to hear those words. And we have to think about a different reaction to them. We can't get our energy all caught up in thinking about how despicable those words are. We got to keep our energy caught up in what are we doing about that locally and nationally. And we're all in it together. We are all in this mess together. No matter how you voted, we're all in this together. So first, it's the inner work. It's the inner work that we have to do in our own lives, in our own hearts, right here in our community, that is going to hold us up to do the other work. So letting go of things like envy, blame, prejudice. Wickland would say greed, but I tend to think of that as envy. So that we can let compassion and kindness lift us up to the surface. And to learn about loving unconditionally and forgiving others, and more importantly, forgiving ourselves. Because if we can't forgive ourselves and we're running around heaping judgment on ourselves, it's really hard for us to forgive and be loving to others. So when we keep love at the center, we become more skilled at recognizing what is a false agenda, what is a competing force of what we want. We start learning how to radically include those we may have seen as different from us. And when we talk about inclusion, which I am also going to talk about next month, to start shifting from that idea that perhaps many of us are in this group where we like, oh, well, we can make room for these other groups. All right, but that still makes us the dominant group. So we need to think about that going both ways. It's like, okay, we're not special. We're not different. We don't have the privilege of including people. We're all people. So maybe we need to be moving further across. King and Wickland will both advise you that you will know your inner work is becoming effective when you start to live with more love and peace in your life, and you start to live with more joy in your life and more compassion, even when your outer situation has not changed. It shifts your thinking. And I'm not saying you shouldn't set limits when you need to. There are some people where it's just not good for your soul at this point in time to be interacting with. And come into this space on Sundays and during the week, right here, where you can experience some shelter and leave your weariness here. I also hope you leave some of your rejoicing here. I would really love it if our ambiance here is not only where we bring in our weariness and set it down, but that we also bring some joy. The educator and community activist and minister, Robert Harvey, tells us to look internally before we act externally. He tells us, think about these Christian stories that King would tell us. And even if we're not Christians, we can still see the story as having truth. And he says, go back to Jesus' assertion that you love your enemies and you pray for those who persecute you. It's the idea that humanity, we're all tied together in King's garment of destiny. I love that phrase so much, the garment of destiny. An inescapable network of mutuality woven together. Something else that caught my eye in this conversation between Robert Harvey and King's work, that it was instead of liberty and justice for all being a starting assumption, which of course, allegedly it was in our country, but it really wasn't because it only included white men and generally of means. But Instead of liberty of justice for all being started as an assumption, it's this beloved community and this unconditional love. As we continue on our need in a world where there is military terrorism, economic uncertainty, and so many things I've already talked about in this service, we still have to put our dream into action. I have taken so many seminars and webinars when the first Israel and Gaza conflict broke out and over those first 6 months. And I would hear over and over again from the best minds from Israel and Gaza on peace would continue to say, peace is always possible. So we best fight these things by working with others and by really claiming our Unitarian Universalist history, because we've been doing it for centuries. I also want us to feel like this is a place we come back to and we get refueled. I'm going to bring you back to the sticky notes. There are some papers over here by the coffee. I purposely put them by the coffee area because I figured most of you would wander over there eventually. And there are sticky notes, and there are pencils on the tables in the back if you don't have anything to write with. So starting in December and in January, and this will probably go through till February, we're doing this little, I'm thinking of it as a mosaic. And there's 2 categories up there. There's TUUC, and then there's wider world. So you've got one for each. And I want you to put on these sticky notes what makes it feel like beloved community here in our immediate community, and what would make it feel like beloved community in our wider world. For those of you who are here at the solstice service, this might feel a little bit like what some of you wrote on those that we put on the tree, what we wanted as intentions going forward. But what I want over here is a beautiful collection of what we need here to make it feel like beloved community. Some people know your name. People know a small fact about you. People know what's important to you, that you were accepted here in some way that might have even been surprising when you first came through the doors. Friendships that you really value here. The work we've done in the past in social justice, because I think we'll do it again in the future. And then your wishes for the world. There's no wrong answers, and you don't have to put your name on it. All right, that is the end of the sermon, apparently. I get distracted. I write out the whole sermon, I rehearse it several times, and then I get up here and I'm like, no, I think I want to say this other thing. So don't let the sticky notes bewilder you. There's no wrong answer, but this is so we can all learn from each other's experiences, because if we're truly interconnected, it can't just be our experience. It's learning from each other as to what you need or have already received that makes it feel like beloved community here. So I'm going to skip setting the intention because you're going to be busy with the sticky notes. All right, and we will turn to our closing hymn.
So in the gray hymnal, number 169, we shall overcome, stand in body or spirit.
Someday, oh
On the screen as we extinguish the chalice. They'll appear someday. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now we'll end with our closing blessing song. Of this we live, from you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live.